One of the most frequent sports takes you'll hear or read is that modern-day American athletes are soft, that today's athletes are nothing like those of the past, and are not only physically soft, but mentally soft as well. The question is this actually true, or is it completely off base? As is the case with most things in life, the correct answer is complicated. Are NFL players soft? Most of us could do without the constant complaining to the refs by quarterbacks begging for phantom roughing the passer penalties, especially since quarterbacks already get tons of protection and favorable consideration. Aside from that, NFL players are not soft. Most of the players are hurt before, during, or just after week 1, and they don't recover until after the season is over. It's been said before, but playing in the NFL is like getting into a car crash every single week. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. NFL players routinely fight through being hurt. You have players like Mark Andrews, Jay Cutler, and Patrick Peterson dealing with diabetes. You have guys like John Mechie, James Conner, and Foster Moreau dealing with cancer. You have guys like J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers who have the worst injury luck. Dobbins tearing ligaments in his knee and tearing his Achilles. Cam Akers tearing his Achilles not once, but twice. Phillip Rivers played in an AFC Championship game with a torn ACL. DeMar Hamlin fought to get back on the field after suffering cardiac arrest. As critical as I've been of Justin Fields, I continue to root for him. He deals with both the daily mental and physical strain of being an NFL quarterback, as well as the mental strain of dealing with epilepsy and all that comes with. Weekly, we see NFL players suffer gruesome injuries only to rehab and come back the next year. NFL players aren't soft. MLB players play 162 games often back to back to back, travel to a new city or cities weekly, and today's MLB has a player in the top 25 for consecutive games played, Whit Merrifield. Aside from players getting upset over guys pimping home runs with sick-ass bat flips, MLB players are not soft either. The game has become more violent in both how players throw and how they swing. More injuries are going to occur, and they're going to be more devastating. If I see a single comment saying NHL players are soft, I'm gonna know immediately that comment is a troll comment. There's no reasonable person out there who watches what hockey players put their bodies through without ever complaining and thinks, yeah, those dudes are soft like Charmin. NHL players eat a bowl of nails for breakfast without any milk.
I had a bowl of nails for breakfast this morning.
Yes, so?
Without any milk.
Want proof? In 2013, Patrice Bergeron played with a collapsed lung, broken ribs, and a separated shoulder, all in a decisive Stanley Cup Final Game 6. In 2017, Joe Thornton played through a torn ACL and torn MCL. Erik Karlsson played through 2 cracks in his left ankle. Half of his ankle bone had to be removed, and an artificial tendon had to be put in his ankle because of tendon damage. Ian Cole not only broke his hand and continued to play until the Penguins won the Stanley Cup, he also played with cracked ribs. In 2022, Leon Draisaitl played multiple playoff series with a high ankle sprain after he sustained the injury in Game 6 of the first round of the playoffs. NHL players are not soft, not even a little bit. And then we have NBA players.
Williams here. If Booker makes the second free throw.
By the way, Booker's complaining about the Raptor.
He slapped himself in the mouth.
Contact with James and a foul call.
Shot is clearly away.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You have got to be kidding me.
To truly understand if NBA players are soft, we need to look at 4 factors: flopping, weak versus hard fouls, load management, and mentality. I hate flopping. I can't stand when players do it, even when my favorite players do it. It feels so anti-competitive. Check that. It is anti-competitive. I get why players do it. It's a smart strategy. Even as much as people dislike guys like Embiid and LeBron, those guys do frequently get fouled without it being called. The only way to combat not getting fouls called in a player's favor is to embellish. But most, if not all, NBA fans hate flopping. It might be a good strategy, but flopping is annoying. Every time a discussion of whether the NBA is now soft or not comes up, one of the main examples of evidence is hard fouls disappearing from the game. It's a fair point. The game's physicality overall has diminished. The rules have been altered to benefit offense. We also need to distinguish between hard fouls and cheap shot type fouls. Today's game is less physical, but the current game has also reduced the types of fouls that were only intended to hurt players. That benefits everyone: the players, fans, sports media, and the league overall. Not every rule change to benefit offense has been negative for the game. On screen is the difference in minutes played on average of the top 100 players by minutes in the 80s, 90s, and from 2013 to 2022. Now on screen is the difference in games played on average of the top 100 players by games in the 80s, 90s, and from 2013 to 2022. There is a difference. Is it significant? I wouldn't say so. 90s players clearly have an advantage in both minutes and games played, but it's not as big a gap as I expected. Even even the difference between modern players and players of the 80s in terms of minutes isn't as big as I expected. Just a half of a minute difference in favor of 80s players. Even with the difference in minutes and games played between the 80s, 90s, and today's modern game being relatively close, there's still one key fact that's been left out. It's the fact that players today choose to sit out games when they are healthy. The players from the 80s and 90s didn't sit out unless they were injured. Now, it could be teams holding these players out, not giving them a choice, but the players have never had more power. Aside from a handful of cases, I have a hard time believing that the players can't play if they choose to play. If a player wanted to play every single game and the team wasn't letting that player do that, wouldn't that player just request a trade to a team that would let them play every single day? You might have heard this argument from the players. If I rest 10 to 15 games a season, I can play for more seasons, giving the fans more games overall. That's true. Unfortunately, that doesn't help the parent who had to save up their money for months to take their kid to a game to see their favorite player who decided to sit out.
My parents, I didn't come from very much. And for Christmas, my parents got me a ticket to go watch the San Antonio Spurs because David Robinson was my favorite player. One ticket. My dad, who worked security and scrubbed floors and did all this stuff, he dropped me off at the game, gave me $5, and I went in there by myself because my family couldn't afford to come to the game. So they knew that I loved basketball. And I was the youngest of 3 boys, but that was my thing. So they paid one ticket, and I sat in there. My dad went to a bar and watched the game and then came back and picked me up when the game was over. So it's like every day that I stepped on the floor, I remember my father. Yeah. I remember having one ticket and being there, and all the families and all the people that were probably just like me. If David Robinson wouldn't have played in that game, like, I get emotional thinking about it because I got to stand next to him in Game 6 of the NBA Finals when he was about to go off into the sunset and tell him that he was my favorite player growing up. So I take that responsibility and say, wait, we can't just gloss over this. And I blame the teams, I blame the training staffs, because the players in this generation are doing more of what they are told than going out there and leaving it all out on the floor.
If I'm wrong on this point, this isn't like my stance on flopping, I'll change my opinion, but until I see full-scale evidence of the players being forced to sit out, it's soft for NBA players who are fully healthy to sit out games. For some people, my opinion might not carry much weight since I've never played professionally. Here's Hall of Famer Charles Barkley saying it better than anyone else ever could.
If you're gonna make $50-60 million a year to play basketball 3 or 4 days a week, play basketball, man.
After everything that's been laid out, what's the consensus? Are NBA players soft? Before you answer that, there's one last thing we need to discuss. Every factor we've discussed so far is influenced by one key element: mentality. The mentality of today's players is without question different than the players from other generations. But is it the players' fault? Partially. There are 3 other groups that contribute to modern day NBA players' mentality: the league itself, sports media, and the fans. The league itself has heavily contributed to the players' mentality. Players don't commit hard fouls because they're likely to get ejected, fined, suspended, or hit with a technical foul. There's not much benefit to committing hard fouls anymore. A player loses money and potentially hurts their team record-wise when they do so. The NBA has changed the rules to benefit offense because the NBA is ultimately a business. The rule changes are based on what the viewer is telling the NBA. Viewership numbers tell the NBA that a majority of fans like this new style of rules. There has been a slight decline in viewership this season. Maybe then the NBA will change the rules again. It's a frustrating situation for diehard fans who aren't in favor of the new rules. The referees contribute also to NBA players' mentality. I miss when the players could stare someone down after a poster. If a player dunks on someone's head, that player should get to taunt at least a little bit. But today, if you briefly look at a player after jamming on their head, you get hit with a technical foul. Players can't even laugh on the bench without getting hit with a technical foul. The number of technical fouls being called in today's game for plays that do not warrant a technical foul is ridiculous. It's ruining the game. The refs have to be better. I speak for myself and hopefully others. This is not how games should be officiated. To give the NBA credit, the NBA has taken much needed steps to deal with load management, and I say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. At the very least, the NBA is trying to fix the issue. Why do players even load manage in the first place? Well, the Spurs started it. Coach Pop wanted to keep Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker healthy for the playoffs to win championships. Just like with flopping, I hate it, but I get it. So one team was doing load management. One of of those handful of cases I was talking about earlier. But what led to load management being so widespread? Sports media and the fans share some responsibility. Sports media doesn't give enough coverage to small market teams and up-and-coming players. The Magic have been super fun to watch this year. They play team basketball, old school hard-nosed defense, and they have a star and superstar in the making in Paolo Banchero. Yet they are never on national TV. Just 5 national TV games this year. It's ridiculous. The Timberwolves have been great this year and yet only have 10 national TV games. Are you kidding me? Being on national TV definitely impacts the decision to play or not, because being on national TV impacts the ability to market yourself as a player. Have a big game on national TV, more fans know who you are, they start buying your jersey, and all of a sudden, the commercials start rolling in. What about if you can't catch a game? The highlights via traditional or official media often don't cover the game enough. Slight tangent, this isn't NBA related, but the official NFL highlight channel on YouTube often doesn't even show the most important plays in their highlights. How are fans supposed to know how well a player did if the highlights don't show that? I miss when ESPN didn't loop the same SportsCenter for hours, or when SportsCenter was long-form highlights. Maybe it's nostalgia and SportsCenter has always just been like this. Don't get me wrong, Scott Van Pelt does a hell of a job when he's leading SportsCenter. The other anchors do a great job as well. The frustrating part is not the people doing the highlights, but rather that the show is way too short. I get it, big markets and star players drive engagement, but if the media celebrated and covered more players would play more knowing they could potentially be on SportsCenter. Even with the rise of social media, it's still cool to be able to make it onto SportsCenter. Shoot, Tim Legler's segments on SportsCenter are great. Have him break down more games and highlight even more players. Maybe then ESPN can go back to being as cool as the other side of the pillow, because right now, repeating the same hour of SportsCenter just isn't working to help highlight enough players. The fans have some responsibility in this also. I'm not sitting up here on my high horse acting like it's everybody else and I'm not at fault. I'm part of the problem as well. We as fans are way too obsessed with rings. Winning a championship is the ultimate goal, don't get me wrong. Players, coaches, fans, entire sports organizations should be disappointed, if not straight up distraught, a championship wasn't won in a given year. That doesn't mean we shouldn't still appreciate other achievements throughout the year, including the regular season. Put yourself in an NBA player's position for a second. First of all, the number in your bank account is looking nice. Second, if the option is to push through a minor injury, risk further injury, potentially miss more games, be called injury prone and called trash if you play poorly in the playoffs due to that injury, or you could rest and be fully healthy for the playoffs. Which option would you choose? And which option do you think most people would choose? Are you playing in a regular season game that's not nationally broadcast on a random Tuesday night in December, risking long-term injury, only to be potentially called a scrub because your team didn't end up with a championship at the end of the year? If we as fans celebrate regular season accomplishments more, players are more incentivized to play in the regular season. Modern American athletes who do not play when they are fully healthy are soft. But overall, modern American athletes are not soft. The players are in a complicated conundrum and are products of their current league rules and structure. The anger and displeasure shouldn't be exclusively directed at the players. We the fans, the sports leagues themselves, and the media all need to take a hard look in the mirror. But most importantly and above all else, we all need to do a better job of celebrating the players willing to demonstrate exceptional resolve. We need to celebrate those players who are willing to say, damn the potential negative criticism, I'm playing because I care about the fans. Thank you for your time.
Kobe didn't want to disappoint his fans, especially the ones in the 300 sections that saved up to watch him play. The kids with the same excitement he once had. I remember asking him why he couldn't just sit a game out because he was hurting. He said, "What about the fans that saved up to watch me play just once?" He never forgot about his fans.
If there's anything I could change about the league to make it better, probably just all the guys sitting resting. These people might have enough money to come to one game, you know what I'm saying? And that might be the game they come to and then you sitting out, you know what I'm saying? So I take pride in trying to play every game because I don't know, it might be one fan that has never seen me play and I'm trying to play, so.